What's happening, everybody? I really appreciate y'all tuning back in. Something a little different. You can hear the echo going on. We're at a different spot, a different location, and that's where we're going to be for a while because it's a new project starting right now. Let's get into it. So here it is, a 1954 Ford F500. Which, if you've paid attention to me on social media or even in some of the last videos, I've talked about this project was coming, and it was coming very soon. But here it is. Now, some people are going to say, hey, what's so special about a 54 F500? Well, there wasn't that many of them made, but they're not highly sought after, and they're not like crazy super rare, but this is local history. There's a really neat backstory on this truck. And it just happened to come back into the Shawnee Springs possession here recently. Now, just so you know, it wasn't originally owned by the Whitaker family, as a lot of locals think and know. Originally, in 1946, the Brathwaite Bros started Shawnee Springs Canned Foods. Rather, the factory was completed and they opened it up in 46. Now, that was a big to-do here on this side of the county. And even at that time period in general, because in 46 we had just got done with World War II, men and women were coming back home, they needed jobs. We were trying to get back to some type of normalcy, not only in the world, but especially here in the US. So the Brathwaite Bros invested in the cannery and opened this big building on this side of the county. Again, was a big to-do. Now, Frederick County was already rich in orchards. At one time, Frederick County, Virginia, claimed to be the apple capital of the world. Not anymore, unfortunately, because a lot of the orchards have made way to subdivisions, but there's still a lot of them left here, and Shawnee Springs still has a lot of them. Now, 46, the Brathwaite Bros had it. This is a 54 truck. Shawnee Springs was bought by George and William Lee Whitaker. George was the father, William Lee Whitaker was his son. In 67, they bought Shawnee Springs Canned Foods because they already had a bunch of orchards. So they said, well, we might as well go ahead and get it, and we'll, put this, in the lineup with all of our orchards. This truck had already left. I don't know what happened. We don't know if the Brathwaite Bros had sold it, if it had just been given away. We don't know what happened, but it wasn't in the purchase of Shawnee Springs in 67 when the Whitakers bought it. Brathwaite Bros never lettered any of their trucks that we know of. Not only that, Shawnee Springs, when the Whitakers have owned it, has never really lettered any of their trucks. It's just not something they do. But especially the Brathwaite Bros, it was unheard of. This is the only one that we know of even being done like this. So it makes it very special to this area and to the Shawnee Springs family. So again, 67, George Whitaker and his son William Lee Whitaker buy it. Time has went on. Mr. Whitaker still, 86 years old, I think he is, still running the orchard, still going strong. And now he has his one daughter, Lisa, and her son, Scott Johnson, helping with the day-to-day operations here. Now, the way this truck came back into his possession was somebody reached out to Scott, said, hey, I know you're involved with Shawnee Springs. I have this truck in a barn that I got years ago at a scrapyard, and we got to move it because some things are happening and we got to get it out of here. Would you be interested in it? Well, yeah, very interested in it. So we got the truck, took it to my family's shop, had it there for a little bit. My uncle, my grandfather got the motor unstuck, like 2 gallons, I believe it was, of a PB blaster went into the motor just to free it up. We knew we had a timeline that we had to meet on this. Scott really wants this truck done by a certain time. I got roughly 3.5 months to get this done. So we moved it to this private location. The only downfall is audio. It's cinder block walls, concrete floor, and a concrete ceiling, hence the echo. I'll have more audio equipment coming in to kind of deal with that, but for the time being, we'll just have to bear with it. But getting back to the truck, this is a huge piece of history, and we're going to try to preserve as much of this as we can, especially the doors, the lettering, and the original paint. So let's do a walk around. I'll show you what we're working with here and why this is going to probably be a very big undertaking to get this done in the next 3 months. To the point where I'm probably going to call in a pretty heavy hitter to help me with preserving this paint. Now, like I said before, this is a piece of local history. You can still see the old one shot in the paint here. Shawnee Springs Canned Food. And it was sold originally right here in Frederick County in Winchester, Virginia. And the owner wants this thing pretty much preserved how it is. We're not going to ruin the paint. We're going to leave that and preserve it as much as possible. The rust, or patina as a lot of people are calling it, we're going to try to preserve all that. We're going to give her a bath, we're going to get her all scrubbed down, and we're going to try to save every ounce of this. Now, this is going to be a little difficult because we also want to try to eliminate the handful of spots that are starting to rust. There is some cancer in the body of this thing. There are some rough spots here on the hood and a few other areas. But again, he wants this thing to basically look like it came fresh off the farm, how it is right now. And that's going to be a little tough, to the point where, yeah, I can do it, I know how to do it, but I'm also not naive enough and arrogant enough to think that I should do it all on my own. So I'm probably going to bring in a pretty heavy hitter to help me preserve the paint and some of the body on this thing. You'll recognize him, you'll recognize him once he shows up here. Pretty sure it's going to happen too. We've been talking, and I think I'm going to have to bring in the big guns to help me on this one. And that's the interior I got to work with. Nothing. Now again, this truck is all original. Master cylinder down underneath the cab on the floor, the old 6-volt battery laying there, and battery tray, or lacking thereof, a battery tray due to rust and cancer. Well, yeah, again, that's what I got to work with. We got no seat. The passenger side glass is completely busted out with the vent window being cracked. Glass is already on the way, actually, for this. And we have to reseal, well, pretty much everything. As far as the weather stripping for the doors go, you can see here it's flaking. You know, time has not been kind to it, even though it's been in the barn. Now, there are some areas that we'll go ahead and fix because they won't be visible once the doors close. So we'll come in and probably try to fix some of this. Now, hopefully I'll be able to get this done within that 3-month time frame. But the main thing is to get it running, driving, and be able to stop under its own power. Now again, this was an actual work truck back in the day. It's got some dings besides the cancer from the age and being here in the Rust Belt. You know, it's took a few lumps. It's took a few hits. You know, it has some damage. Now, besides that, I would like to update the wheels. The owner and I don't want the old split wheels, the suicide wheels, widowmakers, whatever you want to call them. We want to get rid of them. Now, some of you might be going, what the heck's a split rim? Well, let me show you. So a split rim was a 2-piece wheel, and they were dangerous because if you didn't get them right, they came apart. Let me swing you down in here, and you can see that lip right there. That's the piece that holds these wheels together. And many a person has fallen victim to these things. Now, this is kind of cool. This is an old B.F. Goodwrench tire. I mean, old. So what does that say? Silvertown. I don't even know what that is. I don't know the history of B.F. Goodwrench really. But there's the date code on the original split rim. Now we're going to update these probably to a tubeless style wheel. I know that I can get the 5 lug on 8-inch bolt pattern in a 22.5 bud wheel, so it'll be a bigger wheel than what they originally were. These split rims are 20 inches, but we'll push it up to a 22.5, but it'll allow us to run a tubeless tire, and we can get away from, I don't even know anybody actually that will change a tire on those. There's only a few old timers left, and they're hard to find. Most companies, most people will not fool with these old split rims anymore. So we'll update that, get those out of there, and, you know, give it still the same look, but, you know, modernize it enough to make it safe and where, you know, people are comfortable putting tires on the thing. Now, like I said before, this is a 1954 Ford F500, and things were changing at that time. Ford just released the Y block, a 239 Y block, not to be confused with the 239 flathead. Overhead valves changed the game for everybody. Now, this is a first generation 239Y block because of the numbers back behind the distributor there. You can find out where this thing was cast, what cubic inch it is, and all that fun stuff. Now, full disclosure, I got my information from a guy called the Y Block Guy. He on Instagram. You can find it in his website. He has charts, all that fun stuff to tell you what motors, what years it was produced, even what foundry it came out of. Now, this is an original 1954 casting that came out of the Dearborn foundry. So this is the original motor to the truck. Now, some people might say, what the heck is that? Well, that's the old FOMOCO oil bath air filter. If you don't know what an oil bath air filter is, I'm not going to educate you. You need to look that up and figure it out. It's an old way how they filtered the air to go into the motor. Wasn't the best. No, that's not gas on there. That is the oil for the oil bath filter. Now, we're going to take this motor and we're going to try to salvage it. It was froze up, locked up. I mean, it was locked up bad. It wouldn't move. Matter of fact, my grandfather and my uncle, while I was at our family shop, pulled the spark plugs and put almost 2 gallons of PB Blaster down into the cylinders and down through the carburetor into the intake to get this thing broke free, which we did. We got it loose. It's all good. But now we got to get it out and, well, see if it's going to even be usable. So, pretty cool. Now, full disclosure, somebody like the Y Block Guy, he's going to get mad at me because I'm not using that. What is that? I think it's either like a Holly 93 or 94 style carburetor. I think it's single barrel up top and it's like a dual barrel down at the bottom, or however you want to explain that, however that works. I'm not hugely familiar, but that's basically how it is. It's a 3-bolt pattern that holds that thing down. Now, I haven't made my mind up yet if I'm going to use that intake, or there's another motor hidden over here off out of a 1955 truck with a actual 2-barrel intake on it. Now, if we do that, well, the reason guys like him and the other, purists are going to get mad is because I'm considering doing electronic throttle body on this, because this truck isn't going to run a lot. It's mainly going to be in parades, and it's going to sit a lot on display, at the shop, or excuse me, at the storefronts. So, it's not going to run a whole lot, and I don't want to be fooling with adjusting the carburetor like once a year because they decide they want to run in a parade or something like that. So, with that being said, besides the electronic, throttle body probably going on it, it's also going to get updated to electronic ignition. I'm doing away with the points. Again, not something I want to fool with constantly, and updating it to an alternator instead of the old generator. And obviously we have to update the wiring, which we don't have to. We could get cloth wiring, but as you can see, it's seen way better days. This stuff is destroyed. It is absolutely just no good. Now, what we'll have to do here is we'll get the radiator out, we'll pull it, get it out of the way, because we're going to actually update it to an aluminum radiator, a bolt-in aluminum radiator, probably from Cold Case. Probably even run an electric fan, because again, while it's going to parade on 5 miles an hour, I don't need it overheating. We want to make the customer happy. Once we do that, we'll get the air filter off, get the carburetor off, and then I'll probably get the hood off here just to make room so we can pull the motor easier and get it out of the way. Now, I do have to make the repairs to the hood. This is very typical. Anybody that's owned one of these, that side's even done it, but anybody that's owned one of these, the hood bracket has broke loose from the actual hood. So a little few spot welds, we'll put that on, we'll be good to go. So it's one of the other things that I have to take care of. Once the hood's off, get the weight off of it, get it all back into place, and we should be good to go. Not a big deal, but it is something that needs to be taken care of. So without further ado, let's get the radiator out, let's get that breather off, and let's start this thing, shall we? radiator and fan shield slash fan shroud, whatever you want to call it, is out. Now, the hose was so rotten. This hose was just laying in the engine block that goes up to the radiator. It was just laying here. It broke off a long time ago. I mean, you can see it's just rusty and crusty. But the old bottom hose, it was stuck. I had to actually take a razor and I cut it, but got it out. A few bolts, not a big deal, pretty quick. Got that out. Now, let's get the old oil bath breather off there, and that might be it for this episode as far as work's concerned, because we've covered a lot of history, you know, where this thing came from and all that fun stuff. So let's get that off. We'll go over a few more things, and that might be it for today. Here's what I was talking about. So it's one big hole in, two smaller holes. Oh, there's even some old gas in that thing. Daggone. Anyway, it's like varnish though, complete varnish. So it is a dual barrel, I guess you can consider it, since it's got two, I believe it's two jets in there. I don't know a whole lot about these. This is, I think technically this is a Holley 94. Even though it's got Ford markings on it, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's a Holley 94 carburetor originally. If somebody knows better than I do, by all means, please correct me. I'm not hugely familiar with these. I know of them, I've been around them, but you know, as far as working on them and making them run properly, I just never messed with them a whole lot. But again, that's what I was talking about. As you can see, two little holes there in the intake for this guy. Didn't make a whole lot of power. I don't even know what the original 239Y block was making. I want to say it was less than 150 horsepower. I'm not sure. I'd have to look that back up again. But anyway, I think that's going to do it here on this one. And we'll come back. Next step is to actually get this hood off, because I've hit my head too many times already trying to just get those few things done, getting the radiator out and getting the carburetor and the air cleaner off. So next step is definitely getting this hood out of the way so we can finish getting the motor out and see what we got here. All right, so one of the things that I didn't go over, I don't think, was what's going on back here. A lot of empty frame. Well, traditionally, at that time period, you would have had like a wooden flatbed, even to the point where the rails for the bed would have been wooden most of the time. Now, it has the big heavy U-bolts. There's a couple of them still on here, frozen up on. I'll probably have to cut them off, but they're frozen on there because that's how you held, you know, down the flatbed. Now, I don't think we're going to go necessarily wooden framed flatbed. We'll probably do a steel frame, which sometimes they did back then as well. That was more expensive, obviously, but we'll do a steel framed, wooden decked flatbed. I'll build it all from scratch. We'll do a whole episode on that, and we'll put that back here. So that's what's going back here when that time comes, to give it that kind of traditional, you know, fresh off the farm look that the owner wants. All right, so I wanted to touch base on that. I wanted to touch base on the flatbed. That way you guys have a good picture of what's going on with the entire truck. Now, with that being said, I just want to say thank you for everybody tuning in and wanting to follow along with this local piece of history that I get to, you know, help resurrect and bring back to life for this customer. There's still a lot going on. I'm still doing the off-road and stuff. I know some of you are probably going, oh, hey, what are you doing? This isn't like off-road. That's not whatever. Well, I've always said that I have gearhead ADD. I'm a shop rat. I like being in the shop. I like working on things. I really like fabricating. And this kind of blends it all right here, because we get to make the bed, we get to redo the motor, a bit of history, and bring it back to life. But we're still doing the off-road and stuff. Mr. Shop Rat's Jeep's almost done. few little things here and there to do, unless I get some major parts or get, you know, some more time and money to put into that. That's almost done, so just minor things. So there might not be any videos of it getting worked on, but hopefully we'll get it out soon. We'll get a little bit of light wheeling in it. You have some videos of that. Still have the 6.0 F250 that I'm going to be doing more tubular bumpers, more tubular roll bars on. Man, I got a 37 Ford to swap that onto a second gen 12 valve Dodge chassis. I think that'll be fun. That'll be really cool. That's full wheel drive. We'll do that. Actually, I'm supposed to go pick up a truck tomorrow, a newer truck that's two-wheel drive that I might C-notch in my airbag. I don't know yet. I mean, too many projects are coming up too fast. Last episode, we just picked up a 1950 Ford F5 and then like a 45, 46, somewhere in that range, like a World War II era Ford 1-ton that's going to make a really rad traditional hot rod. I think that's going to be a flathead all the way and just old school chop slam channeled, all that fun stuff. But again, I have gearhead ADD, so there's going to be a lot of different stuff coming soon. I have a lot of projects, this one being the main focus for the time being over the next few months. But again, stick around. I think we got a lot of cool stuff. There's something for everybody, and I hope you dig what we're doing here. Again, like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Make sure you check out shopratmetalworks.com. We'll have some blog info. I'll be, you know, linking the videos here on YouTube up to the website. Plus, there's parts you can buy. There's all some of my favorite brands that you can purchase. Moto Bill, Tough Country lifts, Skyjacker lifts. There's just all kinds of stuff on there, especially for the off-road industry. So check that out. Hope to see you back here. And hey, till the next time, take it easy.